I'm Dan DeRosa, and it is time for Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. Every Thursday, we feature 3 fugitives who could be out on our streets right now, and one phone call could get them in front of a judge. They're facing serious charges, everything from murder all the way down when we feature them here on Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. And we need to get our community just a little bit safer. And you don't have to fear making that phone call to Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County. We'll get into that in just a little bit. As always, we're going to welcome in Detective Red Dyer with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. Detective, how are you today?
Doing great, Dan. Enjoying this little bit of warm weather we're getting.
Yeah, it's going to get even better next week, but let's get to our 3 fugitives. Red, explain to the public why we do this, why you folks with Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, why Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County, why do you want the community to get involved?
Well, Dan, as we cover every week, we recognize the value in the community as an asset to helping us close some of these cases and also to get justice for these victims. That's very important to us. And the community themselves can use this opportunity to potentially get themselves up to a $5,000 reward, which we'll cover a little later.
Yeah, up to $5,000 money can be a big motivator. It could be just somebody you kind of casually know, or you know where this person hangs out. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Red, let's get to our first fugitive today, Gerald Toney. What do we know?
Well, Dan, Gerald Toney is actually wanted for 2 cases with the Sheriff's Department. In the first case, it's alleged in indictments that Gerald used a vehicle to assault the victim, something we're seeing more and more of, unfortunately. In his second case, he burglarized the victim's home. He actually has an extensive and violent criminal history with the Sheriff's Department going back to 1999, so he is no stranger to police, Dan. He also has active warrants with the city of Cleveland Heights for driving under suspension and drug paraphernalia. He's approximately 5'8" and 190 pounds and was last known to be staying in the 19,000 block of Shelton Drive in Cleveland.
Red, on this next case, we have co-defendants, and let me explain for some of our viewers, if you're not familiar with how the law works in Ohio, let's say 2 people go rob a bank. Somebody sits in the car. It's the other person that goes in that robs the bank and comes out. You're both complicit. You can both be charged with bank robbery, armed robbery, whatever the charges are. Even though you sat in the car, you can be charged with this as a co-defendant and face the exact same charges. If that person went into the bank and shot somebody and maybe killed somebody, you can be charged with murder as well, even though you didn't pull the trigger. Now with that explainer, we have co-defendants on our next case. Let's talk about Davion Steele and Charlton Bronner. Charlton Bronner Jr. is somebody we have featured here before, but let's walk through this case.
Well, Dan, Mr. Steele and Bronner Jr., as you said, are both co-defendants on the same attempted murder case originating out of the East Cleveland Police Department. It's alleged that in April of 2022, they attempted to rob and kill the victim using a firearm. We're seeing a lot of firearms used in violent crime, something we don't want to see on our streets. The victim suffered serious injuries from this attack. Mr. Bronner actually already has 2 probation warrants as well with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department from 2020 for receiving stolen property, improperly handling firearms in a motor vehicle, and carrying a concealed weapon. Both men should be considered armed and dangerous, Dan. Definitely 2 individuals we want in front of a judge as soon as we can. Mr. Steele is 5'11" and 190 pounds and was last known to be staying in the 1200 block of East 125th Street in Cleveland. And Mr. Bronner Jr. is 5'9", 180 pounds and was last known to be staying in the 18,000 block of Kildare Avenue in Cleveland.
Red, it's not often we feature a fugitive where we've never seen this crime before. At least the charge is a new charge, something new on Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. But that's the case here with our 3rd fugitive. Let's explain swatting. Swatting is unfortunately become this trend. It's really destructive because it ties up forces, ties up resources with our first responders. It's when somebody calls in a fake bomb threat to a school or to a business. And of course, then all of the authorities have to descend on that because it has to be taken seriously. But because it had become such a rash, and we had seen it so much, the state legislature and then the governor had to sign a new law creating this charge in the state of Ohio. It was signed back in January of 2023. We're of course talking about swatting, this idea of calling up a fake threat and then the SWAT team or first responders have to swarm to that area. Very dangerous. You're tying up resources that could be used maybe on something else, another emergency at the same time. So it's very interesting that we have our first case of swatting. It's very hard to catch these individuals. If they're smart enough, they're using ghosted phones, they're using phone numbers that aren't tied to anything, but not the case here. Good to see that somebody has actually been caught and charged with swatting. Red, let's get to the case of Shanice Foster.
Well, Dan, as you explained, these are very serious charges, no laughing matter at all. Definitely ties up police resources and could potentially get somebody hurt. You have police officers walking into situations that they believe to be a high threat situation when it is, in fact, a false alarm. Ms. Foster is wanted on 2 cases with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. In the first case, in August of 2023, reports state that she made a phone call to a high-profile building stating that the victim, I know this is worded strangely, was going to shoot up a local hospital. In a separate case in September of 2023, not that long after, she called the police stating that she herself was being held hostage and had been shot in the leg by the victim. Of course, the police forced entry into the apartment to assure that no one was injured. It's also alleged in indictments that she caused damage to the victim's car and has also been in possession of a firearm, something she's not allowed to be in possession of due to a 2017 guilty plea to assaulting a police officer, Dan. Reports in that case state that while she was under arrest in March of 2017, she spit bloody fluids at police officers as well as kicked them several times. And if that wasn't enough, she also spit bloody spit onto a responding EMS medic. She's approximately 5'5" and 268 pounds and was last known to be staying in the 2600 block of East 114th Street in the city of Cleveland.
And Red, I counted up the charges. You can see the lengthy list here underneath her mugshot. 28 separate charges that Foster is facing. Not somebody we want on our street, somebody we want in a courtroom. Red, it's very important that we reassure the people that are watching. And if you are watching this on social media, if you click share, this video is going to get propagated. We know other people are going to see it. You may not know any of these people, but they could be in your neighborhood. They could be making your family less safe. But by simply sharing the video, getting the word out there, more and more people will see it. Red, why should people feel comfortable? Nobody wants to be a snitch. Nobody wants their name on a court docket that leads to the arrest of one of these individuals. Why is that not the case with Crime Stoppers?
Well, Dan, as I like to discuss with you every week, but for our new viewers, we don't record phone calls. We don't take down your name. Everything that we do through you is referenced through an anonymous tip number. We don't even have caller ID. And you can use that anonymous tip number to call back within 45 days to see if you're valid for a reward, potentially.
Yeah, it's a great process. It's what makes Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County so useful as a tool, is that your name is not anywhere. You don't have to worry about somebody finding out you made the call. 216-252-7463 is the number. If you have to remember it, it's 216-25-CRIME on your phone. And again, they just give you a tip number. You call back and you see if you are eligible for that up to $5,000 reward. Detective Red Dyer, when we start talking about a reward, what do we like people to remember?
We like them to remember that crime doesn't pay, but Crime Stoppers does.
Crime Stoppers does pay that reward money, and they do it often. Let's get some individuals off our street into a courtroom. Detective Red Dyer, as always, thank you for the help this week. Thanks for helping make our streets just a little safer.
Don't be ridiculous, Dan. Thank you and the community.
Absolutely, Red. You have a good day, sir. That's going to wrap it up for Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. Again, we do this every Thursday. We've got a pretty good success rate getting people locked up after they've been featured on Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. Just doing our part to help Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County get the message out there. If we have any other breaking news, it'll be here on our digital platforms. Our 11 o'clock news coming up in just about 20 minutes on CW43, then our noon news on Channel 19. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. Let's go get them.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV apps and follow us on social media at Cleveland 19 News.
All righty, Red, Patricia, another week. Thank you very much.